So very glad you could join us today. Today's lesson is on how to build a portfolio, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, but I'm going to give you my favorite way, and that's basically using a sheet of poster board that we're going to fold in half. Now bear with me because I'm going to show you a cool way to fold it in half where you won't have to get a wrinkly, edge right here. And then you're going to have the opportunity to create a design that utilizes your name as inspiration for that design. So stay tuned. This is going to be about building a portfolio. What is a portfolio? Well, in this case, our portfolio is going to be a large pocket folder that we're going to store our artwork in for the year, for the semester. It just gives us a nice place to kind of keep everything organized. So, without further ado, let's dive in. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to learn how to properly fold this piece of poster board. So I've bought a piece of poster board that is 22 by 28 inches. It's important to know how big the poster board is so that we can do a little bit of math, right? You're going to need a piece of poster board. You're going to need a ruler. And you're going to need a number 2 pencil, not a mechanical because it'll break your lead when we get to one point of this process. An ink pen will work just fine. In fact, an ink pen works even better when it comes to scoring the paper. So, that said, let's get started, shall we? So, half of 28 is 14, right? We're going to divide this poster board in half. Now, in order to do that, we have to have more than 1 point because in geometry, it takes 2 points to create a straight line. I have a ruler that's 12 inches long, which is what most of you might have at home if you're doing this at home. It will work, but you're going to have to manipulate it a little bit. So I'm going to use both. I also have one that's 18 inches long. That will work even better. If you have a yardstick, that will work even better. So I'm going to start with a 12-inch ruler so that I can share with you what I mean by manipulating. If I need 14 inches, I'm going to have to put a mark at the end of the 12 inches there and then slide my ruler over so that I have an extra 2 inches. And I'm going to make a little bigger mark so I know which one I'm dealing with. Remember, we have to have 2 points. So I'm going to take my 18-inch ruler. I'm going to come over here at the top and notice it doesn't matter where on the poster board I put these 2 spots. As long as I have 2 points, I'm fine. You want to make sure that your ruler is right at the very edge. I don't know if you can see that. Right at the very edge of the poster board so that we have correct measurements. And I know that I am dealing with 14. It's the line that goes between the 1 and the 4. And I'm going to make my mark. Now this is where a yardstick would come in really handy. Because I want something that will be as long as this 22-inch poster board. But I don't, so I'm going to make this work for me. I'm going to line those 2 points up. And we're going to score the paper. This is a trick that they use in advertising when they're making product boxes, right? To get a nice crisp fold, they either, they score the cardboard a little bit before it folds. That's what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to bear down. And it's going to, if I have a sharp pencil, it's going to break the tip. And I've got a lot of pressure going right now. And I keep moving down. Now, when I get to about that point, I need to slide my ruler because I don't have a long enough ruler. And if you're working with a 12-inch ruler, you may have to slide it more than once. Make sure it's lined up nice and good and flush with the line that I've already drawn. And continue. You also need to make sure that your poster board's on a nice flat surface. Okay? Now, if you did that correctly, alright, so if you've done this correctly, then, and I'm going to hide my face in doing this, when you start pushing it together, so I'm going to push it together very gently, you should be able to see that crease start. You see that crease? Oh yeah. Then you can lay it back down and very gently push on that crease. And you will have folded this poster board very nicely, okay? And hopefully evenly. Before we can begin designing our portfolio, we probably need a refresher on balance. Balance refers to two different things. The first is the visual balance that happens when you just look at a piece and it feels good. In other words, you don't have one area overwhelming another area. You don't have a section that's drawing your eye completely over to one corner where you don't want to look at the rest of the artwork. That's when visual weight is spread evenly throughout the art piece. That's when we say we have good balance. And then we have the types of balance. Whenever we talk about balance in art, we talk about symmetrical, asymmetrical, and radial. So let's look at symmetrical first. You probably learned it in math, but symmetrical is when you have an axis, fold it in half, you open it up, and both sides on either side of that axis are visually equal, like a butterfly, all right? And then you have asymmetrical, and they say basically anything that's not symmetrical is asymmetrical. Asymmetrical means that you just have haphazard placement of visual objects on your picture plane. And then we have radial. Radial means that the artwork radiates out from the center, like a spiral, okay? You can think the tires of your car, or if you look up straight up at a ceiling fan and it only has 5 blades, that's a radial balance. Before we begin, we need to think about thumbnails. Thumbnails are really fast, small, loose sketches that give us the essence of what you're trying to accomplish. Think of it as kind of the outline that you might come up with for your English paper, except in this case it's a thumbnail for art. You're going to want to do thumbnails for both options that are presented here. So you're going to have choice. Your first choice is the asymmetrical design. And so for this choice, we're going to do 4 thumbnail sketches. And really what we want to do is test out font styles. You know, choose the first letter of your name and then play around with some different fonts and styles. Even play around with upper and lower case. This will make it more fun for you and give you more opportunities for some interesting design. We want to do some thumbnailing to come up with some fonts that we enjoy. Fonts would be your letter styles, and you can play around with those letters of your name. So I'm going to fold it in half, like so. I'm going to fold it in half, like so. And for this one, I'm just going to let you do 4 thumbnails. I think that'll be plenty. Your thumbnail might look like this when you get finished, and it might be fun to write a few notes in there to yourself as to what you think might work and what might not work. For the asymmetrical design, you're going to end up cutting out the letters in another sheet of paper and then tracing around them. So you'll want to be able to cut those letters out. All right, so your other option for creating the design that I'm going to offer you is based on a grid so that it will become either symmetrical or symmetrical in radial or just radial. Your choice in how you color it for how it comes out balance-wise. However, it's a really cool option and that I'm happy to share with you. So let's start with our thumbnails for this one. Okay. So if you're at home and you don't have a predetermined grid for your thumbnails, you can take your Xerox paper. So take a piece of Xerox paper. Notebook paper would work fine too. And we're going to fold it. So I want you to take the corner and you're going to fold a diagonal like so that you have the diagonal. Then you're going to take the point right here and we're going to meet the bottom of that triangle there. It will kind of look like a little house, right? And just to kind of get it out of the way, I'm going to fold the bottom up like so. And then if I fold it in half, it will give me several options for creating my thumbnails. I'm going to open it up, and that's going to give me a grid that I can use. So the trick on this particular design is to force your letters to stretch all the way into the triangle. That means the top of your name and the bottom of your name touch the sides of the triangle. All right, and in this way, when we lay it out on the bigger grid, the letters will kind of connect with each other and then get lost, which is where the optical illusion comes into play. So for these thumbnails, you want to test out a variety of fonts, maybe direction for your name, whether it's slants or whether it's straight up and down. You just want to test out a whole lot of things. The other thing that I would tell you that will make a difference is that if you have a long name, let's say your name is Elizabeth, you're going to want to shorten it to Liz or Beth. Even if you aren't called Liz or Beth, you're going to want to shorten it. And if you have a long name that doesn't shorten well, then you might consider using your initials. Have fun! Be sure to join me for part 2, where we learn how to either cut out a pattern and put that down and create our design for asymmetrical using a pattern, or use a grid for our symmetrical radial design. See you in a bit.